goddamn music. Shit. In this video, I'll be taking a look at 4 different arenas on Dead Ops Arcade 2. Coliseum, Meatball Soup, Chinatown, and Evac Rooftops. Timestamps will be in the description for each arena, and also accurate English closed captions are available for the hard of hearing. Anyways, I'll be examining the differences between the DOA arenas and their campaign or multiplayer counterparts in Black Ops 3, and also talking about some other baloney related to level design. So first up we have Coliseum, which is actually a Safehouse from the campaign. Who first started calling it Coliseum anyways? In any case, it's infamously the smallest arena in the DOA series. The Safehouse in campaign has a whole bunch of stuff you could interact with, and also some pillars which were removed for DOA. When you go through the campaign, there's a lot of areas that jump out to you that would make cool, unique, visually pleasing arenas. And this Safehouse, I guess it's cool, but DOA arena is not the first thing that jumps out to me. So there's a doorway in the Safehouse which is closed, and it's of course opened up for a spawning location in DOA. Simple arena, 4 different locations, top, bottom, left, right, very much like DOA 1, except very small. Also, some of the stuff inside the spawning locations are changed or removed. In the campaign, there's a structure on the top which serves as a roof, but that's removed as well. Again, this arena would have benefited from being much bigger. I like a good challenge, but the old adage, it needs to be within reason. And there were some good changes made specifically for this arena, such as fewer zombies for the enemy spawn cap, so that definitely helps. And I always thought it might have been cool to have a staircase leading up to the rooftop. And you could even increase the spawn cap then and have engineers dropping on the top. Engineers that are a real threat, that is, and other zombies jumping up there. A little radical of an idea, but I digress.
I need an answer.
Onto the Meatball Soup. Some people call it Bloodbath, whatever. Here's a nice view from the top of the hill. As you can see, a lot of rocks all over the map, and they're removed for DOA too. You obviously have electric poles replacing them to an extent, though I think some of the rocks could have had a place in the map, and could have made it a little more difficult because the arena suffers from the opposite fate that Coliseum has. Meatball Soup is just way too large of an arena. There's also a spawn location on this map which is wide open on DOA but covered up with trees and other baloney in campaign. And also on the campaign, the Blood River is much more of a deep red. And I ain't talking Argento. I've also noticed that with a lot of these arenas, there's a slight difference aesthetically with the arenas and their inspirations. Maybe it's the lighting or some other stuff, I don't quite know, but the DOA 2 arenas are a lot less vibrant. But DOA 2 does have a lot of interesting arenas in terms of layouts, and this one is no different. And maybe it's to its detriment at times, because some of the quirky designs later on in the game don't end up meshing well with traditional DOA gameplay. DOA 1 had a lot of square maps, right? I mean, we used to think that the Martyr arena was cool because it had a couple of obstacles in the middle of the map, and there was a weird place you could camp in. But now in DOA 2, you got circle maps, small maps, large maps, maps with bridges, zombies spawning from the ground, maps with more than 5 spawning locations, and so much more. While playing this campaign level, I recognize this bastard. That's Robert Picardo. He voices McNamara on 5. He also starred in a TV show in the late 80s called China Beach. A real missed opportunity by not having him hold that weapon during the 5 cutscene instead of JFK.
No more Mr. Nice Secretary.
Holy jumpin' schlop. Now we're on to Chinatown, the most difficult arena, and also the most puzzling arena in terms of its geometric design. I've always thought that it was more or less a one-to-one copy-paste from the campaign. There's quite a few additions made to the DOA arena that I was not aware of. There's a bridge added, the middle platform is added instead of there being just water. Interesting stuff. The bridges in this map could have benefited from being a bit bigger in my opinion, to where you could run around a couple zombies that block you at a choke point. Maybe have one of the bridges in the corner be as wide as the area on the opposite end of the map. Also, the middle platform could have been a bit bigger, but these are of course issues that need to be addressed before release, because changing the geometry of the maps after release, especially months after, is a tricky issue. You really want to limit how much of the game you alter from a level design perspective. It has many implications on records achieved early on, the gameplay experience for over 99% of the players who don't even make it past the boss round, and if you change the arena of the map to make it easier for 4th time around, you're also making it easier first time around. Those are consequences you need to take into account as well. It's important to sometimes examine the broad picture, right? An arena might be ridiculously difficult, like Chinatown 4th time around on rounds 225 to 228, right? But eventually you need that wall to run into. When you take a step back, it sounds a little ridiculous to say, oh my gosh, round 225 is really difficult. Well, it is 40 hours deep into the game, and is round 225. For me, DOA has always been more fun, and this applies for both DOAs, when I was playing games that only required one sleep break. You know, trying to get to 120 in DOA 1, or coming home from school on a Friday on DUA 2 and getting a record by Saturday evening. When most arenas, if not all, become easily passable, then it starts becoming a connection and endurance test, which is also an issue that has plagued zombies throughout the years. You know, G-Spawn on round 160 on DUA 1 sucks. Having a cap of 255 on BO3 zombies, pretty lame as well. But at the same time, it provides some closure to what would otherwise be a tedious competition. Now I know they're fixing that issue with BO4 zombies, where they're removing the cap on 255. I'm interested to see the implications of that, and whether or not people are going to be getting to ridiculously high rounds, especially with customizable options that can make it even easier. Or is there going to be a reset or error that stops them as well, like the previous games? I'm not quite sure, but I am interested in sort of seeing what route that takes. Another thing too that not a lot of people are talking about from the Black Ops 4 reveal last week was the announcement of a Black Ops authenticity system, which is intended to help third-party sites like Zombie Records and competitions like Zombies World Championship, according to Jason Blundell. I don't know how exactly it's going to authenticate your games and recognize them as legitimate, so I'll be on record saying right now that it's a nice idea on their part, but I don't think it'll work very well. Anyways, with many of these campaign levels, the skybox is really pretty. There's almost an apocalyptic feel with all the flames and the fury. It's like Godzilla's on the map or something. And I understand why the skybox doesn't really get carried over to DUA, because there are 4 different rounds in an arena that take place during different parts of the day and even night, right? So you need 4 different skyboxes. So it's easier to just make a plain skybox, mess with the lighting each round, and then you have a standard night skybox that you could copy paste for the 4th round of each arena, which looks pretty nice. Oh, jeez. On to Rooftops, which is one of the 3 arenas that is based off a multiplayer level, and they're all back to back to back, which is probably not a coincidence. The most significant difference that jumps out to me between the DUA 2 arena and its multiplayer counterpart is the little baloney platform in the middle of the map, which is shifted in the DUA arena. When you're looking at the map from a top-down view, it is wide, and on multiplayer it's not as wide, but it is longer. So it's rotated 90 degrees on DUA. And I'm not really sure why that's the case, though I'm sure if you look at this image where I rotated it, it makes it to where there's less room on the bottom, and you really don't want that maybe. So I guess that makes sense. These steps on this map are a real pain in the ass. You could go up and down them just fine, but only from one side of the steps. Try stepping down the right side of the steps and you're stuck on an invisible barrier. On multiplayer, this of course isn't an issue. I don't know if it ever was, maybe they patched it early on. Nice little dead body that you could get a good view of on first person. I think DOA could have benefited from having more things like this, where players could sort of satisfy their craving for story elements by exploring the later arenas in first person mode. Have some cryptic text or something, which could give the game more press by having YouTubers cover the possible storyline connections and clues. Just something there for people to latch onto and grasp at straws. Looking forward to Black Ops 4, I wonder if the lack of campaign and probably terminal will have any bearing on whether another DOA game gets made. There's obviously other ways they can incorporate it, but there's like over 10 arenas in DOA 2 that are taken from the campaign. So would they just take levels from the multiplayer maps, or some zombies or blackout stuff, or maybe some early levels from campaign before it got scrapped? If it even was started, and I'm gonna guess that it was. Anyways, I have a few more arenas from DUA 2 and their campaign multiplayer counterparts that I could compare in another video, like a part 2 or some baloney. I don't know if anybody cares to even see that, but yeah, that's the end of this video. Winner, Fido dinner.